Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 42 of FPL the Onion. So some puns for you this week. Obviously, we went with the fairly strong bench depressed to highlight how Shlee and I are feeling about the last game week. We also had salad dressing down. No, Shlee? Trolls hard?
I like that one. That definitely reflects my mood more.
Ice cold Baileys? Terrible. This show is about Fantasy Premier League, and listening to it, as long as you do the opposite, will make you better at FPL, guaranteed. If you think Leon Bailey is a troll that will never again score any FPL points because he hasn't so far, if you think a Palace defender away at Everton will likely get more points than Andreas Pereira away at Leeds, if you think that playing Salah over Nico Williams is optimal, then this is the place for you. Game week 13 was a week of peak FPL where Liverpool lost to Forest, millions moved from Trossard, who had City away, to Foden, who had winless in 4 Brighton at home and had started every game so far. Many should have bench boosted with popular bench players, Ward, Andreas, Nico Williams, etc., all returning. I personally had 29 points on my bench. Things could have been worse for me as Arsenal assets had a rare off week. Big wins for no manager bounce Villa and how has he survived Leicester. And players who free hit in game week 12 rather than transferring out game week 13 returners De Bruyne, Maddison, etc. are flying up mini leagues. Any questions, please put them in the comments below and we will come back to you with our thoughts. How are you doing, Mr. Shlee? Are you thoroughly bench depressed?
Hey Nick, yes, it's a pretty bad one, isn't it? I think everyone probably had why did I do that kind of decision, and we'll probably touch on a couple of those as to I think I had 2 biggies on my bench that would have made such a big week, and one of those weeks where I think for most of the community it was a pretty like 40 to 50 scoring week, but then you saw a few people like 60, 70 and you thought, it would have been such a good week. It wasn't one of those transfers that got away. Those points were on many of our benches. So it was a bit of a reflective one of why did I do these things, which is always a bit annoying. And for me, certainly, it's like I've had to think about 5 greens in a row where I've sort of gone up 10 to 20k places for all of them, and then I've lost pretty much all of that momentum with 1 week, which is just a real bummer. So you're like, moving in the right direction slowly, and then it all comes crashing down. So yeah, we're trying not depress everyone with tonight's hopefully be a shortish one, but see how much whinging we can get through.
Yeah, it does. You've actually, as I kind of said, messaging last week, you've been playing really, really solidly and making, strong decisions and maybe not kind of flying up the ranks and having like massive differentials, but just steadily doing well week on week. And I've just been having kind of how you were describing how you feel about this game week is how I feel about my season so far. So I'm kind of looking forward. I am looking forward to the break over the World Cup and over December, and just kind of almost seeing it as a restart kind of project. I did pretty well in Project Restart FPL a couple of seasons ago. So I'm kind of looking to just almost have that fresh look at it again and go again. So
I know, it only feels like, yesterday we were doing the first wild card, so yeah, it's going to be good having a couple of months to really give it some thought. But yeah, everyone's going to start again, aren't they? And I think it will be hard to climb the ranks a little bit because everyone's going to sort of start afresh and have similar teams, and then the momentum hopefully will come when it's blanks and doubles and stuff in the winter.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how as we know from Twitter that a template will form, and suddenly you'll look at players like 5 game weeks after it comes back and just think why on earth were they in the template? Why on earth we were looking at them? And I think that's what you've got to try and do, is find the players that not everybody is looking at and who you think could still score well. But yeah, it's going to be difficult to do. I guess a couple of things just about that period that have come out this week is that the prices are going to be fixed. So there won't be any price changes during that period at all.
Where's that come from? Sorry, is that confirmed?
Yeah, confirmed. Confirmed by FPL Towers, I think, but there won't be any price changes during that time, which I think is good, because you don't want to be every night kind of checking and moving players around just because they're kind of rising in price. And kind of bandwagons emerging just because their price is potentially changing. But then the other thing I guess to consider is that if you have got value tied up in a player, it isn't like the start of the season. If you have got value tied up in a player, you can't just chop them in and out, because you'll lose that value when you try and bring them back in.
Yeah, Yeah, that's true. And I hadn't thought of that recently, but yeah, that is in my head. But it's funny because I think I did message you about this. I was chatting with I was chatting with someone who takes FPL pretty seriously and didn't know one sort of quite important fact about the World Cup. And I was listening to just another random podcast this morning, a 10-minute one from just someone on YouTube who was quoting another error to do with it. So the the podcast is saying like that game week 18 is when you need to play your first World Cup by. I was like, no, that's 2 game weeks off. So for anyone listening, make sure you know it is 16 to 17 is the period. And then yeah, to Johnny, if you're listening, my colleague at work are on a bit of a giggle who was sort of talking about restructuring his team ready for the sort of long break over the World Cup. And I was like, Johnny, you do know you get unlimited transfers? He's like, you what? He's taking money out of like attack and stuff to put it in defence and like a long term thing. It's like, no, you're going to get unlimited transfers soon, mate. Everything is really short term here. So it's funny, isn't it, how we think we're quite engaged and everyone will probably know the same, but I guess some of these things are buried in the rules, and if you're not on Twitter or whatever, you're not going to know.
Yeah, but then I did also get I get an email, kind of an FPL email that's kind of summarizes certain things, etc. And one of the things that they'd listed in there was, I think it was Villa's next 5 fixtures. They had a graphic that showed Villa's next 5, including like I think it was game weeks kind of like 14 to 19 or something, 14 to 18, and it was just like, so 2 of those fixtures are after the World Cup. So it's kind of, I do think it's pretty much irrelevant. But then I guess the only thing that makes it slightly relevant is this fact that if you take a player out once their prices increase, you'll lose it. But I still, again, I think it's strange to be looking past game week 16, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. I think if the prices are fixed, then that's great, isn't it? On that last day, you can just turn off after game week 16 and then come back. But yeah, like you say, if you wanted to tweak it around just to see how things looked, be careful of removing Haaland, say, and you're not going to be able to get them back for the same price.
Yeah. Exactly. Although there is some fake news going around that Haaland's definitely out of the weekend. Have you seen that?
Yeah, so that's Spooner on
Yeah.
on Twitter or whatever. But yeah, the what was it? The Leicester extra got hold of it and was retweeting it, and then
Really?
people saying this is fake kind of thing. But I
So
think he's
what's the story with Booner? Has he just set up some other accounts then?
no. I think on Twitter you can. I don't know if you have to have a certain number of followers or been the account for a certain amount of time, but you can change your Twitter handle and your name. And he does that
Right.
sort of every week just to jump on whatever thing he wants to kind of take the piss with. And then I think he's had to set up another account because I saw earlier that his main account has been blocked for a week, I guess, because like Leicester Extra or whoever's got some kudos behind this has said, look, can you ban this guy?
Fake
And they have.
news. That's hilarious. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
quite funny. I mean, I've fallen for a couple in the last week where I've liked them, and then I've thought this is massive. Why is it not all over Twitter that someone's got injured or something, and then gone back and the way to sort of figure it out is to see how many Twitter followers he's got, and that's the only way you can tell the account's actually him, and it's like
Right.
15.5 thousand or something. So he's got a fair following by doing this kind of crazy shit.
That's good. That is good.
Anyway, after swearing there, sorry about the kids filter. Should we just before we move on to the usual stuff, just do this every 10 episodes or so, just a bit of a reminder about what we're trying to do with FPL the Onion. So I thought I'd just go through that quickly, and feel free to chip in at the end if I've forgotten anything. But basically, Nick and I are 2 mates who are chatting FPL, and we every week try and carve out an hour to an hour and a half to chat about the game that we love most of the time. But also we've got pretty busy lives where we can't do some of the crazy amazing content that some other of the big content creators do. So we enjoy watching a lot of those guys and girls and bring some of that content to us here. But we're hopefully creating a bit of a relaxed kind of part of the community here where we talk about our teams quite a lot and what we've done in the last week and for the following week. And I think that's quite important because having that context of where we're coming from with our teams, what we've learned and what we're not doing so well with, and things that have gone well, I think it's quite an interesting discussion. And then obviously, hopefully there is useful stuff for everybody in there as well. We're bringing in a few original ideas of our own, like we've got our own fixture ticker that I'm trying to prove is better than a few others out there over the long term, and some other stats and stuff. So we've kind of not been doing great with our OR in the last couple of weeks, and maybe hopefully going to come back stronger after the World Cup. But I just thought it was good just to remind people who are new to the channel what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, no, well said, Shlee. I think I had a very good season by my standards last season. I'm having an absolutely horrendous season this season, but again, I still really enjoy coming on here and kind of chatting to you every week. And I think there are certainly things that hopefully we can learn from, and therefore hopefully other people can learn from as well. And I certainly just listen to as much FPL content as I can. So hopefully there are people out there who are doing the same and can pick up on this and stick around.
Yeah, exactly. Right, on to the usual stuff. So here's the state of the mini league. Anyone would like to join that's listening, the code is TRLU7M. Raj Conway is back on top after he had a great week where he benched Doherty and had Castagna in the starting 11. That was the main difference with him and Dean Ambrose, who's been nudged off the top. And I didn't actually write down the score, but highest in the league was our friend Simon Sang, who probably won't be listening. But I think he got like 75 or something stupid.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember the sort of players he had in there. I think maybe he had like a cheeky auto sub with like Darwin and someone else coming in for them. So he had a great week. But yeah, Raj at the top there, 12k in the world. So that's the sort of standard at the top of the league.
As in Sai had somebody come in for Darwin?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Andreas or something maybe.
Yeah, nice. That was a transfer I was considering last week, was to go Aubameyang to Darwin, and then obviously
yeah. I saw that when I was making the slides.
I heard the early team news that he wasn't likely to be in the lineup, and just kind of thought, right, I'll just leave it. But
I mean, that's slices of luck, isn't it? Where had you done that would have been great, because you would have got Bailey off the bench, right? That's just the way that's just FPL classic, isn't it?
Don't tell me that, Shlee. I hadn't even thought of that. But yeah, that would have been an amazing transfer. I'd have been sat there with Darwin in my starting 11, and instead flipping Aubameyang just stinking the joint up. Yeah. It would have been Andreas. I actually had Andreas first bench and then Bailey second. But yeah.
Okay.
Ugh. That would have been a great transfer.
Right, so here's how we did last week. Myself, 46. I did the classic Trossard to Foden transfer, which many people did, and as we've said, was -6 in terms of gain on that transfer.
Well, yeah, and probably add the 4 in for it, because if you just rolled.
Yeah, true. Every transfer is worth 4-ish, as we kind of say. Yeah. The number of ones in my team was just ridiculous. Like Doherty. I mean, we'll come to that in a minute. Zaha with his booking, Foden not getting the start, and then Solanke coming off. That was just a classic kick in the face on the Monday. 17 on the bench. I mean, I got the bench order right in a way there, so at least Andreas was ready to come in, but obviously didn't. And I think the things I've done wrong here was, so I did take quite a lot of thought actually around deadline when I happened to be at a pumpkin patch with the family. And luckily I had some 4G. But I saw that Jump the Wave account had predicted that Doherty was like 16% to start or something. And Royale was much more likely. And I did think actually about taking a -4 pretty much at deadline. I was thinking about Van Dijk, and he could have scored like a brace easily. But I think I didn't give enough thought to, should I just start Nico? And I don't think actually that was a mistake. But had I had someone like a Castagna or a Zuma or something, I made maybe some more strong transfers in defence a couple of weeks ago when I got Webster and Doherty in, then that would have been better. So I think that was a mistake I made like 3 weeks ago, but then didn't actually sort of come to fruition until now. I don't think
would you really have? This is the thing though about hindsight, isn't it? I mean, Nico Williams was last on my bench, and again, I think I didn't quite get my bench order right, but Nico Williams with his 6 was the lowest scoring on my bench. But when you see Forest against Liverpool, you don't think that Forest are keeping a clean sheet in that game.
No, but given the choices I had, where I thought Doherty probably was going to come on, and Webster had City, remember, that Forest was better than that. So you're right. But that's why I don't think I probably would have changed it. But it's one of those where I did give it a bit of thought. And so when it's one of those, you always think, oh, why did I not just make that switch? But the Andreas one, I don't think I would have done.
But Nico Williams could have got 0. I mean, Liverpool win 4-0, or he gets booked. He could have had -1. And I just think, again, yes, Doherty's kind of 16% start, but you still hope before the lineups are revealed, you hope he's going to start, right? And then as soon as he doesn't, you're like, okay, I hope he's not going to come on, especially because I think had Fulham already played? No, they hadn't, had they? But oh yeah, they had. Yeah, Fulham played on the Sunday early, didn't they?
I wouldn't have got his points obviously with the formation, but yeah, it would have been Williams.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just I think that's very hindsighty to say start Nico over Doherty, and obviously it would have worked out great, but
maybe, yeah. But I did give it some thought. I think a lot of people would have thought, well, I never would have done that, but I did around deadline. I was looking at their expected minutes and whatever. So I think it's obviously individual whether people were thinking about it.
yeah.
But more, I think the point was, had I had someone else other than Webster and Doherty, Azuma or Castagna, or I mean, obviously it's hindsight to use those names, but I would have probably played them because I thought, I'll take Doherty's 1 point on the chin and bench him.
Yeah.
So that's maybe an error I made a few weeks ago. And to be honest, Webster, okay, he has got me a 6, but he is a pretty boring pick. I know he had great fixtures, but I just didn't see any of those sort of wing backs or full backs. But maybe I should have just looked a bit harder. I mean, Castagna, I think because he got a jammy clean sheet, he's got 5 clean sheets in the last 5. It's absolutely flying. After they did a bit of a sort of Southampton, they get absolutely battered, and then they've just turned it around.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other things though, right? I mean, a lot of people did really well with Ward again this week. And fair play to Leicester, fair play to Brendan Rodgers, and even to Ward, because he was obviously getting a huge amount of stick. And I was listening to Planet FPL, and they were saying that Ward had conceded the most goals of any goalkeeper after 8 games, and now they're something like the 4th tightest defense in the league after this many games. So it's just it is mad how these things turn around. But on my game week 8 wildcard, I had considered, the whole Ward Everson double up again. And I just thought, I'm not doing it because they're never going to keep a clean sheet, even though their fixtures are amazing. And yet those who did just stick with Ward either on that game week 8 wildcard or, from the start, they're laughing now, aren't they? Because they've done incredibly in terms of defense.
But the other error that you just reminded me of was not going for Ward over Everson, and you and I probably did that for a bit of value, right? Because we'd lost 0.1, and we were hoping Everson would come back in and rise. But obviously, in hindsight, that was stupid, and maybe we wouldn't have played him this week. But at least having that 8 points on the bench is better than an Everson.
No, and I think we might have played him this week. If you think about it, they're playing Wolves and Newcastle had Spurs. I think we probably would have played Ward this week.
Hopefully, yeah. So it wasn't a good one. The stat I did like from James was that I think it's only Newcastle have got more clean sheets than Leicester this season. And given how Leicester started, like you say, it's just been their last 4 game weeks they've been incredible.
Yeah.
So down to just outside 200k. So that was from like 110. So a bit of a bummer.
Yes.
Here's you.
Well, I am just just more than 1.5 million places below you, Shlee. So absolutely flying. I mean, this is it's just horrendous. It's just this season just gets worse. But I think the biggest mistake that I made this week was playing Gahey over, and you think about Doherty as well. I didn't think that Doherty wasn't going to start that game because I think he's been on good form, and that is a tough game against Newcastle. And maybe that's why he didn't start. Maybe he wanted to kind of shore up the defense a little bit. But by all accounts, he's done really well. He's played very well. While he's been in. But I think maybe the issue here is, it's probably that rule, always play the attacker. When you see you've got Andreas with 10 and Bailey with 13, it is that reminder that I probably should be playing midfielders over defenders. But this is with the context of maybe Andreas, but Bailey's been horrendous for me this season. And I know that Gerrard's probably been a big part of that. But even the few minutes of Villa that I've seen, he's just looked angry most of the time. Maybe that's just because he's not been enjoying his football. But I haven't actually seen his goal yet, but sounded like he played really, really well. So I think now I'm probably going to keep him now, because I think with a new manager who plays wingers, he's probably going to feature, and he, there was a reason why I kept him in or picked him back in on my game week 8 wildcard, because I just thought it was a good option at that price. Obviously, I wish I'd brought Almiron in at that point, but I think Almiron only had 1 return in the first kind of 7 game weeks or something. So to bring him in would have just been kind of crystal ball gazing, I think. But
Yeah.
He's continued to do incredibly, hasn't he?
Well, he's been a bit like blimmin'. Do you remember Willock went on their crazy run as well? Was it the end of last season? Again, a sort of cheap Newcastle midfielder. It's just funny how sometimes hindsight again, you're like, well, they scored like 3 in a row. And I remember like Vardy when he was trying to go for the record of in a row, was it 12? He got 2. That was a bit different because maybe we were a bit blinded by the price though. But with Almer on, it was well, we're not even sure if he's going to keep his place because some Maximan's coming back and that's going to boot him out.
Yeah.
But he's gone from, I think, what was it? He's got 5 goals in his last 5, but before that, it took him 65 games to do. So he's not known as an amazing finisher, but he's just got that confidence. And Newcastle are obviously just a machine operating beautifully behind Guimaraes is lush, and Trippier's playing great. Wilson's doing good, and Isak maybe having an injury is good because that just keeps it really constant lineup.
Yeah, and that I think maybe the time to get Almer on him was a couple of weeks ago when you heard that Isak was out until after the World Cup and that St. Maximin had a setback as well. That was probably the kind of safer time to get him. But even after he was getting big points, I just thought as soon as I bring him in, he's going to either stop scoring completely or he's going to be benched.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, hindsight. But I'm annoyed about Zaha in the fact that I know he got a return last week, but he's the kind of player that I think even when I was bringing him in, I kind of said to myself, and I may even have said on here, that he's a bit like Rashford in that he does better against when he has harder fixtures.
Yeah.
So he's probably the kind of player, he's almost the kind of player, like, because again, he'll probably be a great differential when they have hard fixtures because everyone else will be either getting off him or not buying him. But I'm annoyed with myself that I kind of went against how I felt about him and brought him in, even though they had like unbelievable fixtures and they've still got good fixtures. Because I just don't feel like he's going to do it, and he's a hugely frustrating player to own when that's the case. But
yeah,
I feel like this season I've kind of gone against a lot of my kind of gut feelings about things. Like, do you remember? I said that Rashford. I thought Rashford would score against Liverpool, but because United had such a terrible start, I took him out. Just kind of moments like that where I've just kind of gone against, the obvious move, which again, I think we spoke about on here, although I think I was looking at Gabriel Jesus, wasn't I? So you talked me out of a similar issue. But when I just bought Aubameyang in, he's been absolutely horrendous for me. Whereas other people have had, Solanke and Toney and, players who actually know where the goal is. And Aubameyang doesn't even know where the pitch is. He never seems to play. So it's been a super frustrating season. I kind of look at this team, and I guess we're going to get to it, but I don't really. I almost feel like every time I do something, I make it worse. So I just roll all my transfers into the World Cup.
Well, one thing I didn't mention, and I forgot to in the sort of reminder of what we're trying to do on this podcast, is that we do have quite different playing styles naturally. Whereas I think you have maybe molded correctly for the first like 6 game weeks into a bit more of a dullard. But remember, half of us would have been thinking about burning transfers at that point. The template was so strong, and Arsenal were doing great, and Haaland was just perma captain, and it was all lovely and easy. But since then, there maybe has been this last few weeks has been maybe the time to chuck a few dice, roll a few, and that obviously tried it with Orba, and maybe that again in hindsight, that Wednesday night last minute thought of a transfer suggested that wasn't great, but that could have gone quite well. So I think your natural touch maybe to go back to maybe to roll a few dice before the World Cup might work. It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I guess, because I've always been the kind of player where I'm like, well, if it goes badly, fine, I've lost 4 points or I'm down 6 points or whatever. If it goes well, I could be up, 20 points. That's kind of always the way I've played it. And I think if you had a sports almanac or a crystal ball, then you could always pick the right players, then taking hits every week would pay off really well. But it's just, I guess it's that thing that I have had to learn to curtail that a bit because, over a full season, if you just keep taking hits all the time, you're going to be down more often than you're up, I think.
Yeah, I think your lesson learned there of the midfielder over the defender is a bit more clear cut because you paid that back for and in hindsight. But then obviously looking back, Bailey, their form has just been terrible. Why would you think they would just bounce back immediately against Brentford? I know now their away form seems so obviously terrible, but they're the sort of team that can have a system and tactically aware that can be really tricky against someone. And Andreas, I was just looking like he's got like 1 return, I think, away from home. They're much better at Craven Cottage. So again, now we know that Leeds are possibly the whipping boys. That looks like a great fixture, but away to Leeds, you've got Mitrovic's cover. You could see why you did it.
Well, I appreciate you explaining that for me, Shlee, because you did a better job than I did. But I was just kind of looking at Gahey and just thinking with Everton, they're a bit toothless. They haven't been scoring a lot of goals.
Yeah.
I just thought there's kind of a fairly good chance of a 6-pointer. And then I was like, is Andreas going to get 6 points? And I just didn't really see it. But I think it probably is a good lesson that, the clean sheet, once it's gone, it's gone. Whereas with the attackers, you've always got opportunities for points. I think that's probably that is probably the thing, isn't it? And I think, didn't Palace's clean sheet go inside like 3 minutes? Didn't Calvert-Lewin score
I think
super
so.
early in that game?
Yeah, defence first normally, Everton, but yeah, with Calvert-Lewin back and like people are talking about Iwobi and stuff, they're suddenly maybe clicking a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I read something the other day where it sounded like Aubameyang to Calvert-Lewin wouldn't be the worst move for the 3 games before the 3 game weeks before the World Cup. I think they've got pretty decent fixtures, and if he's back and he's fit and he's scored, then it could be worse. Could be worse picks. I think he's like, is he 1% owned or something?
I can tell you. I was going to next maybe move on to just a few sort of flary picks that we're thinking given the fixtures, and some people that are maybe off the radar a bit. He is 0.4%, 7.9. So
yeah, nice.
Quite an easy one to go from if you're on a Toney or something.
Yeah, no, I quite like that. And we'll have a look at the fixtures in a bit, but I think they've still got some pretty good fixtures.
So if we just maybe pick out anything else that happened in the week that interested us, either players or results that we've not kind of touched on. I mean, the top there, Forest versus Liverpool. I mean, Salah tonight has scored. Didn't look at. Oh, blimey, it's 3-0 now. It was 1-0 when I looked. I don't know who got the second. Elliott's got the third. Nunes has got the second. And Salah got the first. So they're beating Ajax 3-0 away. So that's promising. Although classic Salah to score loads of points in midweek and then do nothing at the weekend. But I mean,
and Darwin's back as well.
Darwin started and he scored. Yeah, and Firmino started that.
That's pretty big as well, because that Aubameyang to Darwin move is a really easy one for me.
Yeah.
And it is a pretty decent differential. So I do think I need to look at Aubameyang out, because haven't Chelsea got Arsenal this week?
Brighton away.
Okay, Arsenal next. And Liverpool have got Leeds at home. So if Darwin gets taken off early in that game, I think I might bring him in for that Leeds game.
Yeah. And
but I brought Aubameyang in after he got taken off early against AC Milan, because he played the AC Milan game, scored, got taken off early, and then didn't start at the weekend.
Yeah, sure. But I think Liverpool are in a bit of a different state, aren't they? They haven't really got anyone else like that to play. Did Alba play was it last night in the Champions League? Yeah, it must have been.
I didn't see, actually. I didn't see.
Okay. Right, what else happened here? I mean, Everton, Iwobi, DCL, they're suddenly on the radar a little bit. In their fixtures, what are they looking like before the end of the season, before the World Cup? I mean, they're decent. 2 of them away, which is not great, but they're actually the only team who have got 3 out of the next 3 on my ticker where 10 plus points is likely given what's happened in history. So it could be worth a punt. And if you're
that could be, well, because the other one is Mitrovic, right? I think this was the time where I was looking at. I think there was a point where I had a plan that involved getting Awani for the last 2 for 15 and 16, because they got Brentford and Palace at home.
Okay, yeah.
But I think because Fulham's last 2, City and then United, that's not
next week.
That's not great, is it? But yeah,
agreed. But
and Everton at home, even though it's a bold fixture on there and it's at home, their defense has been pretty good this season, hasn't it? So,
sorry, who's house? Everton's house.
Yeah, so as in with Fulham, even though that's a home fixture in bold, their next 3 is not great.
Yeah, okay. I definitely wouldn't, unless he's got a knock. I mean, this is the thing we need to keep an eye on. Mitrovic might have, or playing with an injury or whatever, that might be a bit tricky, but I think next week's the time to go. And Skamaka's the other one to go for, because he's got 2 very good home games as well.
Yeah. True.
City, Brighton, obviously, Trossard doing his thing. And the Foden benching. I mean, he played 81 or something last night minutes. So although that's good that he got taken off, I certainly wouldn't be, and depending on what happens with this Haaland shenanigans of fever or not and a knock on his foot, I think if he's out, I'd probably be more tempted to captain Salah this week than Foden. Would you?
Yeah, agreed. Well, maybe even given my position, do a Mark Southerns and really set fire to it and just captain Darwin or something if I bring him in.
Okay. Why did you mention Mark there? Did he do something a bit crazy last week, or
Well,
just
no, it was when he wildcarded. Was it when Haaland got the hat trick? It might have been the second hat trick, and I think he captains. Did he captain Salah? I can't remember.
Oh right, okay.
He captained somebody random. It might have been Salah because I think it was the Bournemouth. It was the Bournemouth game, wasn't it? But I can't remember.
Yeah.
I feel like he captained somebody really strange, like Son or something like that.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark. That's probably if you're listening, that's a pretty harsh call out there.
I think he's recording Black Box at the moment with Oscar. I saw.
Yeah, so, I saw that. Yeah.
Did you see the intro where they were? I think Mark said something like, Oscar, you've had a great season last season. Didn't you get to the top 100 or something? And Oscar, bless him, like I would have just said, no, number one, mate. But yeah, I think he said something very modest, like, I think I got into the top 10. And then Mark said something else, and then he dropped in that actually he was first for a bit. But Mark's reaction wasn't like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realise that." I think maybe he actually knew, but he was just taking the piss. But yeah, I was like, mate, if you're going to be number one, you might as well just say you're number one. Know where your guest got to.
I did listen to a little bit of it when I was making dinner earlier, and it was really funny because very similar thing where they were talking. Mark was kind of reminiscing or kind of commiserating about the fact that he hasn't done very well with chips in the past because they were talking about chip usage.
Right.
And then he said, "Yeah, well, have you got like similar experiences, Oscar?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, I remember I captained Mane for one point." And Mark's like, "Yeah, I did the same thing." And then he's like, and I can't remember the other one he mentioned, but then Oscar was like, "But last season I played a bench boost in like Gameweek 19, and it took me to number one in the world."
Yeah.
And Mark didn't really react. Like I'd be there going, "Oh yeah, that's
Maybe he doesn't
that's a
believe
pretty
him.
good
That
use
would have
of a
been
chip."
twice then in the same episode he'd mentioned it. Because yeah, that I think it was like game week 11 or something, and I remember Foster was on his bench and he for Watford and got like 11 points off it.
Yeah, that was it because he mentioned using the bench boost in a single game week, and it worked out really well for him. And then I think when he free hit in game week like 19 or something, it took him to number one in the world. But it was funny because I've just thought about it. He's obviously on a show where there'll be some people listening to that show who aren't kind of subscribers to his stuff, so it makes sense for him to drop his record in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
But he's probably chatting to one of his heroes as well. So
yeah.
There you go.
Chelsea United. Any interest in the United boys before the World Cup?
Yeah, I watched the kind of last 25 minutes of that game. Managed to kind of get out of bed and bath time for a bit to watch the end of that game, and just really impressed with Ten Hag and what he's done, and the fact that I think the United of last season, if they'd conceded that late penalty, I don't think they'd have come back to draw the game. They actually attacked really, really well after that. And obviously Casemiro's header was incredible. And Kepa nearly had an 12 pointer, and then it got wiped down to one.
Yeah.
But yeah, almost an unbelievable save from that header. But in terms of United assets, I just think I watched the highlights of the Spurs game in the game week before that. If Rashford could finish rather than just hit the ball really hard at the ball,
yeah, exactly.
He'd be an absolutely monster FPL asset. I mean, again, had him in my game week 1 team, but I was speaking to somebody today who's had him for like the last 4 or 5 game weeks, and he's got like 2-2-1, like just not big scores, and yet he'll have a massive game where every one of those shots goes in and he gets 3 returns or something. So I don't know.
One for after the World Cup, I think, though. I think the fixtures aren't too bad, but I think with that break of maybe Ten Hag doing more of his thing, and like people have been talking about Shaw, and there could be a few assets there for sure. Like Anthony, we know, has been getting involved with quite a few. Actually, after the World Cup, they are decent. Forest at home as a starter.
No, they're very, very decent after the World Cup. I think there'll be quite a few people on 2 or 3 United assets.
Yeah.
Coming out the other side. So.
Okay. Let's just whiz through anything else that stands out with these other ones. I mean, Maddison, I'm a bit annoyed about him because it was such a rage transfer when he got his booking. But in hindsight, even that, I know he's got City this week, but that Wolves game, we did think, it's not the worst fixture. But he effectively had a blank when we didn't need him. It would have been a very patient play to have just kept him because he's just so involved with everything. I mean, obviously that Tielemans one, he sort of would have got a jammy FPL assist on another day, but he's just brilliant, isn't he?
Well, we were saying before the show though that I was so focused on trying to navigate game week 12 in kind of the most optimal way. You know, we were talking about there were people taking out Arsenal assets ahead of it. There were people, loads of people transferred out Kevin De Bruyne for Salah. Then Maddison, obviously people who had him, as soon as he got that yellow card, it's like, well, I have to get rid of him because I don't have anybody coming off the bench for him. And I need to have 11, I've kind of tried to navigate this by having 11 players playing. Lots of people getting Trossard because he had Forest. Whereas, again, one of the people I was speaking to today, free hit in game week 12 because they had Maddison, they had, I think, 3 City, 2 Arsenal, and they free hit. But it meant not only did they do really well in game week 12 because they made some good picks in game week 12, but in game week 13, they had De Bruyne, they had Maddison. So coming out the other side of it, they had these assets that a lot of people had gotten rid of, who then scored. So I know loads of people, and I think we were the same, were saying, you shouldn't use your free hit in 12, but actually just the way it landed, it was actually a really good week to use it because you also got the benefit in game week 13 as well.
Yeah, I think that was just one of those variance things though. I mean, De Bruyne to Foden was definitely, well, unless it is one of those, it was the right thing to do 4 weeks ago and is now going to bite you. I suppose it is the right move because you save so much money and Foden has been outscoring, unless it's that you don't need the money until 16 now because people are getting cold feet on Salah and stuff. Maybe going to bin him off next week unless you're going to get Kane or something. Maybe you don't need that extra money, and maybe De Bruyne with his guaranteed starts and stuff and on set pieces is going to be the better asset.
Yeah, because as soon as you see that lineup and Foden's benched, it does just hammer home to you again that although Foden has been incredible, De Bruyne is the more solid City pick, isn't he? And in a team where they have rotated or they have Pep Roulette, etc. It is annoying, especially when Salah's blanking against Forest. And that's the other thing about this season. This season just seems to be so difficult to predict. And obviously that's what we're trying to do with this game is we're trying to predict things. And it has been I'm having a torrid time. I'm trying to bring in good players with good fixtures and it's not really working out.
Agreed. Newcastle with that result, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I think that's as much about Spurs not being great. Obviously, Kane's getting the points regularly. I mean, if you were to roll this week, a lot of people are talking about shifting Salah next week. Would you consider it if you had 2 free, or maybe even for a -4, Salah to Kane next week?
I don't know. I mean, Kane has been incredibly solid, and I know a few people have said that without Haaland in this league, everyone would have Kane up front because he just has been very, very consistent. But he's not absolutely setting the world on fire. He's just getting he's getting a return each game, which again is all you really want. But he's still expensive, isn't he? Has he even shot up in price that much? Was he like 11.6, 11.7 or something? But doesn't really. I haven't seen his price flying.
So that's what he started at, which is crazy, isn't it? He's actually not gone up; he's gone down.
Well, he's 11. He's 11.5.
Sorry, you can't see what I'm saying. Yeah.
It just shows though, doesn't it, that in any other season he'd be 11.8, 11.9 by now.
Yeah.
With those kind of returns, but I think it's a bit of a double whammy in that Spurs aren't really performing very well either, are they? So
yeah,
he's doing very well when the team isn't doing that well. So it's a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
I'm not kind of running to Kane. I do think there are better options in terms of, I think Darwin's a good option. I guess because of my position, I'm kind of looking at more differential kind of edgier picks than getting on Kane for kind of 3 weeks before or 2 weeks before the World Cup. Who have Spurs got next week? And
that's the problem is Liverpool. So going from Salah to Kane, it's a bit of a Salah's got a bad fixture, but it's not as if Spurs have got a really good one. But then they both got very good ones in 16.
Yeah, I don't love it. If Spurs had 2 good fixtures, that's what I was looking at when I was a few weeks ago looking at the fact that Fulham's fixtures turned so badly in 15 and 16 is what would be a nice punt to do for those last 2 fixtures. And I was looking for forwards with 2 good fixtures, and there aren't many, as you said, Scamacca at West Ham And well, I wasn't looking at Calvert-Lewin, but now that he's back fit, I mean, Everton's fixtures are pretty good. But then having said that, Leicester have now, we see Leicester and we think, okay, target that defense, but they've now got 4 clean sheets in 5, and then Bournemouth have obviously shored it up massively as well. So maybe those Everton fixtures aren't so great. I think Darwin is the one that I'm looking at, not for Mitrovic, but more for Aubameyang at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah.
So top 10k, we'll just whiz through this quite quickly. Again, another week where no
Look
one
at that.
pulled, apart from Haaland at the top and then Andreas just about at the bottom, which is a strange one because that shows how many, because obviously it was a fairly high scoring week, how many like probably 5% owned and less players did well. Your Zumas, Castañas, the
Bailey's.
Yeah, yeah. Iwobi and stuff. So it was a strange week. I mean, yeah, the other ones to have in there, Mitrovic and Kane and Ward, but otherwise no one else in that top 20% EO actually returned, which is pretty crazy.
That's probably the only thing we didn't really cover in the fixtures, and I kind of covered it a little bit in the intro, was just how much worse this week could have actually been for me if Arsenal had turned up and smashed Southampton, because I don't have any Arsenal assets, and that 1-1 was kind of reminiscent of the way fixtures kind of went for me last season when I had low ownership, where the players that I didn't have didn't punish me. So
yeah, 3 of them in the top bit: Saliba, Jesus, and Martinelli. Yeah. Oh, sorry, and Saka's in there down towards the bottom as well. I mean, Zaha to Saka was the kind of move I thought a few weeks ago. I'm pretty torn on that now. Are you the same? You're thinking you got other things to do? Aubameyang out. So.
Yeah, I've got plenty of other stuff to do, and not just FPL. But I'm just with Zaha. It's so frustrating because I don't expect him to get big points, but he's still got good fixtures, and he's still a good player. So I don't really want to take him out. I don't want to rush him out. I've seen a lot of people trying to rush him out this week, but I think they've got Southampton, haven't they?
Southampton at home, but it's just one of those where it goes back to the need space to operate, and Southampton I don't know, away. I'm not sure how they play there, but I think they're going to try and keep that quite tight. West Ham probably is a better fixture from next week because at least they're going to be at home and they're going to try and come out. Forest, though, I'm not sure. They're going to probably just try and sit in again.
But West Ham aren't at home. So you mean as in
next week, as in West Ham will be at home and they'll be probably home fans are going to be wanting to attack, and then that.
Oh, I see. Space. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. He's definitely not on the top of my list to go when he's got Southampton at home. And I know what I was saying at the start, but I think I'm just annoyed with myself for having brought him in. Because I think I knew that he doesn't. He's frustrated me before, and I've either had him and he's frustrated, or I haven't had him and just thought he's not doing anything. So
yeah,
annoying.
Captaincy. So this was how it was on Scout last night. I mean, obviously we've got this Haaland flag now, and has he got a foot thing and a fever thing? Although there's some, I think it was Luke posted some pictures of them. Like, did you see this? Like training pictures, but they're all in the pool. So like Foden's got his like swimming trunks on, as his Haaland and stuff, and then he was making the point where they're all together in like this big group. So it's unlikely, one of them's got potential COVID or flu or something. So he thinks it's just a load of rubbish. But one to obviously look out for. And City is the early game, so if you're near a phone or your computer at whatever the deadline is, at 11 o'clock, is it Saturday? Keep an eye out for any leaks.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. But it is quite interesting because you think, like, after the game when it finishes 0-0, I only saw the scores after it had finished. But to take him off at halftime when they might need a goal to win the group is a strange decision, isn't it?
True.
It does suggest there is something going on. If you'd taken him off on 65 minutes at 0-0, you'd be like, okay, fine. He just wants to make sure he's okay for the weekend. But he's playing against his former club. They want to win the group. They did anyway. So I think that's the thing. You kind of have to just, sometimes you have to really put, not going back to this again, but I probably should have looked more closely at the fact that Gerrard left Villa and what change that could have made. I think you've got to try and interrogate this stuff sometimes and think what's going through people's heads. I heard on Black Box Mark was saying that both, I think it was it Bailey and Ings both tapped their temples when they scored. Did you hear about that?
No.
So apparently when they scored on the weekend, they both kind of did this like tapping their temple thing, which is probably something that Gerrard used to do a lot.
Oh, right. What,
So
as a bit of a dig at him? Or
well, like a message to Gerrard being like, yeah, thanks, mate.
oh, wow.
We're free of you now. So, the shackles could really be off for Villa, but big segue. Sorry there from Haaland. But I do think there might be an issue. It might not be really bad, but yeah, definitely wait and get some team news.
Yeah. Interesting that Raymond team has got Salah quite a way ahead of Haaland as well. I mean, that could against Leeds. Everyone's saying that Leeds might be the new whipping boys. That it could be a blimmin' 4-5-0 or something. So I don't hate it too much, but I think I'd have to get some pretty concrete injury rumours from about Haaland to have me consider switching it. But Salah could be my vice.
Agreed. I think Haaland has just changed the game because he is as good as he is. He can get 2 or 3 returns against anyone on his day, can't he? So I just think you just have to be so brave to go against it. Even if Haaland was like away at Chelsea and Salah was at home to Forest, it would have to be a decision, which it would never have been with anybody else last season, right?
Yeah. Okay, quick look at who's on. I've just done 4 yellows here because it's getting to the stage where if they're on 3, if they get through another game, then they're going to be fine before the World Cup. But picking out some names: Saliba to watch out for, Jesus, Toney still, Guehi's on 4, Bruno Fernandes, Darlow,
Toney,
share, Toney, and I think that's probably all the big ones.
Okay, he's on 4. That's going to turn out to be a great transfer, isn't it? I think the thing on this is just it's not even, you wouldn't sell a player because he's on 4 yellow cards. You'd wait till he gets to 5. But I just think if you're thinking of buying any of these players, you just got to think twice about how irritating it would be if they got booked in the next game.
Yeah. Or if you own, say, 4 of those 6, people out there might have Saliba, Jesus, Guehi, Toney. You might, and if you're 50-50 on rolling or buying someone in, you might roll because you might find 2 flags next week when you're not expecting.
Yeah, true. Or as you say, you might prioritize if you were going to make a transfer and it's 50-50 who you're going to take out, then maybe
true.
Maybe you would prioritize one of these just because it just heightens the risk, doesn't it, that they're going to get a blank in the next 3 games.
But I suppose if your bench is strong, as we've seen this week, maybe it's not a biggie for them to sit out one game. But
I mean, I should have bench boosted this week, Shlee. 29 points.
I know, it's crazy. Well, I didn't pick it out because I'm a bit low on time, but as you've said, back to this, in the top 10k, only 0.5% of people bench boosted, but they made 18 points, which,
wow,
pretty solid. And in a single week, if you double that for a double week, 36 would be a brilliant bench boost. So anyone that did bench boost very randomly, but did very well.
I mean, if I bench boosted, I'd probably be just outside the top million now.
Absolutely flying.
I'd be, like top half in most of my mini leagues.
On to win like £1.50 in the cash league or something.
Yeah, exactly.
The only reason I put this up is a reminder that between 15 and 16 there's the League Cup games as well. So next week there's midweek Europe games, and the week after probably do want to hold your transfers because they're until just before 16 because everyone's going to be playing midweek. But otherwise the fixture crunch is kind of over for a lot of these teams. Okay, this is what you're up to next week, Nick.
Yes. I don't love looking at this. And look who's kind of second bench as well.
Yeah, Bailey's there. I mean, against Newcastle, at least it's a fixture is unlikely surely to do anything. I know he's a man reborn, but it's the most solid defence you could come up against. So
but this is the thing. I mean, after what we've been saying, and this is the whole thought process kind of last week as well, except that he hadn't scored 13 points, but I've still got Guehi above him, ahead of him on the bench because they've got Southampton.
That might be a mistake. Yeah, I'm just going to look at what Orba did do last night as well, just so we know. But sorry, cool. Carry on.
So I think Orba scored last night. I think I did look at it. I think he scored. Can't remember.
They won, I think, didn't they? 2-1
I think he may have
away, I want
scored.
to say. Yeah, Salzburg.
I think he scored. I think Havertz scored as well, didn't he?
No, he didn't score. He started but came off on 75 minutes for Broja.
Okay.
Chelsea went 1-0 up with Kovacic, then Salzburg equalised, and then Havertz scored.
That was it. Havertz, yeah.
So it's kind of anyone's guess, isn't it? Off on 75. That's not, it's not clear cut either way, is it really?
No, but he's been annoying me, so I think he might have to go. But I'm just sitting here kind of staring at Brighton away and thinking, like, Brighton have lost their last. Oh, sorry, haven't lost. They haven't won in 5 games now. They haven't. I don't think they've won since Potter left, because they drew 3-3 with Liverpool in De Zerbi's first game. They haven't won since then.
Yeah,
but
yeah, they're a bit of a probably wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't captain against them, but you probably wouldn't also bring them in. They're just, we don't quite know what they're doing yet, do we?
No, but I don't know. I mean, okay. I mean, I'm so kind of at a loss at the moment with this team that I'm going to just, what would you advise me to do? If this was your team, what would you do? Just give me kind of your quick take on it.
I do like Orba to Darwin. He came off in the 65th minute or so tonight, so yeah, he's pretty well rested. At least Fixture could be explosive, but I suppose that is such a trap in a way. Like, would we be surprised if Liverpool lost like 2-1 or something to Leeds, who are going to press Liverpool and try and give them some problems? Again, after a really good midweek win, maybe not. So it's a bit risky.
Yeah,
but you're doing it for free. It's probably not that bad. I don't know. The other thing that springs to mind is maybe you could play Bailey. You could play Bailey and bench Orba. I mean, that is a lot on the bench and roll. I do like the flexibility of rolling next week, especially if we are thinking of shifting Salah funds. Mitro might be a sell next week, so having 2 there might be good. And I think Doherty as well is, for me as well, a bit of a problem, because if he did, I didn't see how much he got tonight, but he started tonight, and look out for that jump the wave account stuff if they're going to think he's going to be bench. I suppose that you've got Guehi to come in, so maybe that's an easy, you just bench him or you play him.
Well, I have, but then, a little bit like, I can't remember who it was the week before. Might have been Andreas again. Well, no, it was Mitrovic, wasn't it? I think. Yeah, it was Mitrovic. I had on my bench, and Alba got the last like 9 minutes of a game and got 1 point and blocked Mitrovic coming in. And then this week just gone, I was thinking when Doherty didn't start and he still wasn't on by 80 minutes, I was thinking I'm going to get Andreas's 10 off the bench, and then Doherty came on for 1 point as well. So I think, you could say, at least I've got Guehi on the bench, but Doherty probably is going to come on, isn't he? And so
he was subbed off tonight in the 71st minute as well, which is a little bit annoying.
Maybe it makes sense. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, basically this week it's almost like the same questions again. Like, for me, it's kind of Guehi against Doherty versus you kind of thinking about Nico against Doherty. It's just, what's the more sensible thing to do? And for me, it's a 50-50 call, because if Doherty starts because of his attacking threat, you'd much rather have him, wouldn't you?
Yes. I think, though, the fixtures are a bit more similar this week. Guehi at home to Southampton, I'd say that's probably more clean sheet potential than Doherty's one. So I think if that, I would look at that prediction site, that jump the wave account, and if they think Doherty's benched, I would probably play Guehi. Whereas last week I think was different. Like you said, okay, 16% chance of playing, but if he did play, it was such a, well, it wasn't really a plum fixture against Newcastle, but
no,
compared to my Webster, who didn't have a great fixture at all, you wouldn't have played him at all. Whereas this one, you've got a very good substitute to come in Guehi. So
yeah, but then, I don't see a massive difference necessarily between Southampton at home and Everton away. That's what I was looking at with Guehi last week. I was like, he could get a clean sheet there, but we could see Theo Walcott getting a goal in the second minute. Is Walcott West Ham now?
He said at Everton, isn't he?
Is he at Everton? Yeah.
I was going to say, why he's been about Everton? Sorry, though. No one's got Everton here, have they? Southampton. He's got Southampton.
Yeah, exactly. Gay's got Southampton, but we could see Southampton score a goal in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Same as Calvert-Lewin against him last week, but
yeah,
I don't know. This is the thing. Because everything I've kind of touched this season has turned to, not nice things. I'm second guessing pretty much every call.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I
and
feel
one
like
train of thought to think
every call can go wrong.
Yeah, one train of thought is you don't touch it, you roll. The worst thing to do is to make a stupid transfer when you're doing badly. But another train of thought is, but you've potentially got a problem here, an obvious Auber out or something. You could move to someone like Darwin who's got plum fixture. Why would you not do that kind of thing? And you'd be like, oh, kicking yourself. You're such an obvious move.
But you know what's going to happen? If I take Auber out, he's going to get a couple against Brighton, isn't he?
Yeah, but I don't know. Looking at, I mean, what has he actually done this season in the league?
He hasn't done anything in the league, but he's scored a couple of really nice goals against AC Milan.
I think he did get one, wasn't it on his comeback around game week 8, I want to say. But yeah, it might be a bit tricky for me to find it just now. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
but then even Darwin, right? Because Darwin's been getting injured a lot. He hasn't, Liverpool aren't playing very well. So it's a bit of a punt, isn't it? It's kind of similar situation to be bringing, well, as we were saying earlier, very similar to the situation where I brought Aubameyang in.
Auber did score in game week 9 away to Palace. That's his only return.
Right. Yeah. I think I got him in. Did I get him in game week 10?
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
so that would have been off the back of 2 goals. That kind of makes sense. I mean, his last 5 his last 5 game weeks, he's played 74 minutes, 0, 57, 9, 73. So he's not getting 90 minutes.
No.
But I suppose Nunes isn't necessarily either.
No.
But maybe it depends on how they're doing in the Champions League. If next week he's, if it's a dead rubber and they're just going to play the B team, maybe that's okay. But if they've got something to play for next week, then you're just going to have the same problem next week, aren't you? Auber's probably going to play in midweek.
Yeah. I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of benching Auber for Bailey because I don't know. But Villa could literally be like a team reborn now.
Yeah.
Couldn't they?
Chelsea are top of their Champions League group, 3 points clear. So they're definitely through.
Yeah. Is their goal difference much better than the second place?
Yeah, Milan's on +1 and they're on +5, Chelsea. So is it on goal difference? If it is, then they're probably top.
It might be results against, mightn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have Zagreb next week, Chelsea, so you'd think they could probably rotate a bit. Yeah, tricky. And the other way of looking at it is if Chelsea's game next week is hard, maybe it is best to wait till next week. They got Arsenal, so I think I'll probably 60% roll then, I think, with yours.
I just think because of that Leeds fixture, I'll have to see. I'm definitely going to wait to get as much news as I can. But I think because of that Leeds fixture and because Darwin is now back and he scored, and I think they really need him to be playing, especially with injuries, obviously to Jota and Diaz, etc. Then I think that is going to be my transfer just because. But then you look at it, I think if Auber had a better fixture next week, I'd probably be more inclined to keep him. But I just think with that Arsenal fixture, that'll be the one he scores in, won't it? So. Yeah, very, very, very difficult. Is there anything else that we haven't really talked about that could be an issue? I don't think so.
With your team?
Yeah, I don't think so. Foden, you would hope, although again, he played a lot of minutes last night, but you'd hope that he starts.
Yeah, I think, you haven't got a decision with Everson.
Mitrovic is apparently playing with this injury, isn't he? He's not training. Did you hear that?
Yeah. So you probably want to have a bit like me, you want to have a plan almost for every position except goalkeeper in case something happens. If Doherty's unlikely to start, you might need probably not in your case, you've got Guehi to come in, so that's fine. But
I should probably switch. I think what I should probably do at the very least is switch Bailey and Guehi around because if Mitrovic doesn't play, I probably want attacker points.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that's probably a smart thing to do. Whereas if Doherty doesn't play, I'm getting Guehi anyway because of the formation.
Yeah. But Mitro, because he's obviously a bit cheaper and you've only got 0.8 in the bank, you can't go to Calvert-Lewin, say, but you could go to Scamacca or who else is in form that's cheap? But you might have to think about that if he's ruled out.
But that's the other thing I could do, isn't it? I could just have more of a consideration instead of just being completely blinkered on Auber to Darwin. I could just look at Auber to any other forward.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if Mitro's injured, you could just hold him and bench him because you've got the bench depth. We haven't got to now keep 3 subs. We haven't got any blanks, so if
No.
Midra gets injured, unless it's brilliant, an excuse to get another attacker in, you could still sell Orba if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it is a strong team. I think it's one of those where, we've had a crappy week, but you look at our setup now. We've obviously got these players in with good fixtures for a reason. It's not surprising it looks good. Just hope it's not a crazy week where strange things happen. Where all the people we've sold in the last 3 weeks, we were saying, I think before, weren't we, before we started recording, the last 3 transfers out we've made, everyone scored this week. KDB, Trossard, and Madison, which I'm sure people are in the same boat, but it's pretty annoying when that happens.
Yeah. If Arsenal had gone mad this week, it would have just the whole game week 12, which I was trying to navigate really well, would have basically been the thing that just almost
Completely,
scuppered my first half of the season.
Yeah.
Get rid of Arsenal assets, get Madison in, then get rid of him because he gets the yellow card. De Bruyne to Salah, etc., etc. Just all like Trossard, all those things were focused on game week 12, and actually it was horrendous.
Yeah. Okay, my team is up on the screen. It's very similar to yours.
Martin Elliott with Forest at home. That's nice, though, isn't it?
Yeah, should be, but I mean, Forest they haven't been great. Well, I was looking at their fixture. The last few games, I don't think they've conceded more than 2 goals in about 4 game weeks. But before that, it was kind of 4s, 5s, and 6s. So they've either turned a corner, or they've maybe turned a corner at home, but away maybe they are going to be in trouble at the Emirates. So
we'll Mark was saying, obviously, Forest fan was saying that what he thinks has happened is that Cooper came up into the league and wanted to try and play the kind of football that they had been playing in the Championship, even though obviously they changed the whole team and the subs and everybody else. But he wanted to try and keep playing that expansive football, but then he's realised that he's got to be a bit more pragmatic and it's not going to work. So now he's changed it to shore them up a bit, because Mark's like, he's a genius. He always knew how to shore it up.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I've got a few problems in that this what I was saying, where I kind of almost need to consider a transfer everywhere in every position, because if Solanke's injured, you'd be tempted maybe to move him on, but he's not the most expensive, so I could just let him rot on the bench. But then I don't have the greatest bench. I mean, but I don't mind maybe Webster coming on, because I think Chelsea are not the most free-flowing team. That could be with De Zerbi against Potter. There could be a bit of a low-scoring one there, maybe just trying to outdo each other tactically. If Doherty isn't going to play with the predictions, then I have considered going with Ben White at Arsenal, or Gabriel or something, maybe with that Forest fixture, and just trying to bank that kind of clean sheet before. I know their fixtures tend a bit tough after that, but I think Brighton's and Forest's actually are okay after that, so they almost need just to get through this week. Zaha to Saka's still kind of on my mind, but that's a bit more of a 2 weeks ago I thought about that transfer, and I did chuck something on Twitter last night about their previous their performance against the same fixtures they've got over the next 3, and they're very similar. Like, Zaha doesn't particularly love playing against Southampton, and Saka doesn't particularly like playing against who they've got in 15 and 16. So I'm not massively keen to make that move. As you say, though, that Forest fixture is a bit scary. So if I don't think any of those are massively important, I probably will just roll.
Sorry, I'm just chewing on some ice here, which will probably be incredibly annoying for everyone. I mean, I hadn't even spoken about the fact that I don't have any Arsenal assets, and I'm going to be very scared again about what they might do. But I'm just going to hope that they're on a massive downturn now, and they're never going to score any more goals. Drop like a stone in the league. But yeah, I mean, I don't see how I could easily, without kind of getting rid of midfielders that are doing okay, maybe I don't really see how I could easily get Arsenal assets in. But and Jesus, I think, hasn't scored for, I think he hasn't scored since they played Spurs, which I think was that game week 11.
Planet FPL was saying the same thing, wasn't it? Yeah, we've kind of been a bit lucky with that. I mean, he's still 50% owned, but they were also, I think it was Nima actually on that hole, that I think in interviews he's been, or maybe Arteta's been talking about him, saying he gets really, he's really angry that he's not been scoring, and he's the sort of player that comes off if he's, even if he's scored one, he's annoyed that he's not scored a hat trick. So I think if you've got him, you obviously keep him, but with that 4 yellows as well, I don't think you rush to him.
No, but it's just annoying because it's much easier for me to get him than it is for me to get any of them.
Yeah, true. Well, maybe that isn't the worst roll of the dice. Yeah, we're talking about Skamaka or Nunes or something, but Jesus maybe is the one.
But we're also thinking about the possibility of benching them as well. In that, even if he played against Forest, gets a yellow but gets a couple of returns, and then I have to bench him next week, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, true.
So that's the kind of thing. It's the kind of thing to consider because of the World Cup coming up. Just that, you've got these 3 game weeks. That might be a more sensible roll of the dice than Darwin.
Yeah, I mean the way looking at that is what I just immediately thought. What are Bailey's fixtures like for the last 2? They're not great, but if they were half good, you'd be thinking, oh great, if Jesus gets suspended, he could pop in. I mean, United could be something in that. Villa Park might be okay.
Yeah, I could just put him in for that. Like you say, it's just whether it's worth that risk. And I think Forest at home, if Forest had still been conceding 4s and 5s, then I think it probably would be worth the risk. But
yeah,
I don't know. But sorry, let's jump back to yours. I just hadn't really been thinking about Jesus really, but
no, that's okay. I think I've sort of covered mine. Unless you think of anything there that seems wrong that I'm thinking of, because I've put quite a few ideas down there. But do you think any of those are way off? I mean, Ben White
no, not at all. I think
it's
interesting as well, isn't it? Because I think our teams are, other than where you've got Martinelli, I've got Aubameyang. Our teams are identical.
Oh, is that right? Orba, yeah, because I've got a lot more money in the bank. You've got Orba and I've got Martinelli.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I think the actual playing team, starting 11 is identical, but that just shows, isn't it? And the difference of our ranks as well. Like where you brought in Solanke, I brought in Aubameyang. Those things have massive differences in terms of how you're doing, and you never get those points back, right? So you then go forward with the same team, but you're never going to get the points back. But yeah, no, it looks good. I don't know. I probably would, if it wasn't for Southampton at home, and that's the thing you've already been saying, that Zaha doesn't like playing without the space in behind. I think Saka, especially as their penalty taker as well, it's a pretty plum fixture, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they're in Europe as well tomorrow night, so I guess Saka won't play because he had a bit of a not playing 80 minutes last week in Europe, so that probably won't offer anything. But yeah, for sure, I'm going to wait till Friday to see if there's any news.
Who have Palace got in 15 and 16?
West Ham away, Forest away.
Okay.
So they're
not amazing.
Decent, but they're not. Yeah, well, they're red, but then they're bold, but then they are away. So yeah. That Forest one, I mean, yeah, they're tight at home now, potentially. So I think Zaha out next week would be quite nice. Zaha to Son would be quite nice. Leeds for that last 16. Some way, maybe need to free up a bit of cash.
I have to say, Shlee, I think if Saka doesn't play tomorrow, I would probably do that move this week.
Zaha to Saka.
Yeah. And I'm actually gonna look, because if I go Aubameyang down to Jesus, can I potentially do Zaha to Saka as well for a -4, and just like absolutely load up on that Forest fixture?
Yeah, the inner Nick -4 is coming out after an hour and 8 minutes.
Well, and it's funny, isn't it? Because that's the kind of -4 that is also super dangerous, because Aubameyang playing against Brighton and then Zaha against Southampton, it's the kind of -4 that can go horrifically wrong.
Can do, but then if you do believe a ticker, then that is reddish and a little bit blue to bright blue, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. But then they've got Chelsea next week, and I do think Wolves. I know we've only got 3 fixtures, but I think Wolves are a team to target, because
true. They're in trouble.
I think they're in big trouble.
Yeah, I think Arsenal got quite a good record at Chelsea as well. So I might not be too put off by that. Maybe just check what's happened there. And I don't know. I think recent fixture sort of history isn't the greatest strengths to go on with fixtures.
No, especially when Chelsea is such a different animal now under Potter,
true.
aren't they? I mean, people were praising him because United started that game really well, and he just made a few changes to kind of bring another midfielder on, and it just totally changed the game. So I don't see Chelsea Arsenal in 15 being high scoring, put it that way. So
yeah, but then maybe that's a Jesus to someone else move. You can get off a bit, get off them a bit.
What? But see, what the -4 to bring him in and then transfer him straight out again?
Well, yeah, if it's for Skamaka, I know I keep banging on about him, or like Calvert-Lewin or something, that could be okay. I think that Chelsea game
true.
Be tight.
True. Very, very aggressive. It's funny, a bit like the Trossard move in 12, where I brought him in and then brought him in from -4 and then took him straight out the next game week. And it didn't. None of that worked particularly well, did it? So
no.
There we go. Anyway.
Right, these are just some bits I noted down that I think we've mostly spoken about. I mean, anyone on Toney, I think you keep him this week because of this potential home versus away thing where people are talking about they've got this way of playing at home that's quite solid, but away they try too many clever things and Toney just doesn't do it away. I think we've talked about, I mean, Pope I just put in there, he's got a good fixture this week, so I don't think anyone would be selling him, but it's just a bit funny how suddenly with all these keepers like Kepa and Ward suddenly banging in the hauls. It's a bit frustrating having double Newcastle defence all of a sudden.
Yeah, although they got a couple of clean sheets in a row, didn't they? But then it has been super frustrating when you could have saved that money. And I think, was Kepa a thing on game week 8 or was he game week 9?
Can't remember when he came in, but obviously they swapped over when Potter came in, didn't they? And haven't looked back.
Yeah,
and you say he was on for a 1 pointer. He got 3 this week, but I think it was 11 down to 3. He was on. He had 5 saves, so he would have gone for another stonking result.
Yeah.
Game week 9 he came in. They had a blank, I think, in 8 Chelsea. So because of the Queen stuff, I think. So
yes.
He's had some.
But no, I mean, I didn't consider him on the. For me, it was quite obvious to go for Pope on the game week 8 wildcard because they had such good fixtures. I think he was only 5-1 when I got him in early on in that game week 8, and he rose to 5-3. But yeah, Ward was the one. Even though I was just like, I don't think this team is ever getting a clean sheet again. And then he got 4 and 5, didn't he? So
yeah. Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we've talked about all of those, haven't we? So
yeah, and apologies if about 5 minutes ago, I wonder if the audio went a bit funny. Your audio seemed to be leaking onto my channel a bit. That just happens now and again. Really? But hopefully I muted myself for most of it.
Sorry, I didn't see that. But
no, that's right. No, I don't think it's nothing you can do. I think OBS just been a bit strange. 1 hour 12. Yeah, we're going to try and make these a little bit shorter before the World Cup, and then when we're in the top 10k, we'll make them 2.5 hours, and we'll have 5,000 subscribers.
You mean next season? That'll be for me then, Shlee.
Maybe for our 50th birthday.
Yeah, I'm already looking forward to next season. No, I'm still enjoying it. I think it's one of those funny things where when it's going really well, you think about it all the time. You listen to everything. I think when it's not going as well, it's harder to generate the same level of interest in it.
Yeah, taking a break is so good for a couple of days with it if you can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think obviously just try and make the best decisions you can for the next 3 game weeks and put yourself in the best position possible, because it is, I've had a bad first half of the season, but I could have a really, really good second half of the season and jump above all those people who've had a good start. But it's unlikely, but it's perfectly possible as well.
Yeah, and the other good thing to cling on to, I still haven't really seen proof of this, is that the points are still quite stacked together. I think there's a 50-point difference between 1 million and top 10k or something. It's not a huge amount.
No, which is good for mini leagues, because I've seen that in my mini leagues. I'm about 50 points off the top in my mini leagues. But it's funny because when you're relying on, say, 10 people, catching 10 people with a 50-point gap versus catching 1.7 million people with a 50-point gap. I'm not saying to get to number 1, but as in those numbers is pretty incredible, really.
Yeah.
That's where you feel like you're having to go for differentials. But again, I just think that you've just got to try and pick the players you think are going to get the most points.
Yeah. Anything else, Nick?
No, all good. yeah, good luck. Good luck for the game week, and please do put your questions on the YouTube comments. We will come back to you on them, and please do like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Yep, exactly. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll be back next week with a similar sort of video. I think it won't be anything before. Cheers, night, everyone.
Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.